one thing I like to do is I like getting into business with things that I can promote myself. So like, for example, event planning, I like to party, or a fashion, I like to dress up. So it's easier to market when it's a part of your lifestyle.
It aligns with your goals.
Yes.
Straight facts. Back at it again. CeCe on the cut.
Zobrigante, and today we have CEO avec classe ENT, CeCe in the building.
Yeah.
Let's give a round of applause.
All right. So, first of all, can you tell us a bit about yourself and tell us how you first got into event planning?
Yeah, so my name is CeCe, and I moved to Ottawa at the end of 2021.
Okay.
I started event planning. It was funny because I wanted to start event planning like years before I started, when me and my like sisters and my cousins, we used to go out, and we always used to say like, why don't we start an entertainment company? And we never got to do it. So when I moved to Ottawa, I thought like, there's not really much of a nightlife in Ottawa, so I decided like let's try it out, So that's basically how it came together. And then I came up with Event Class. My sister actually helped me come up with the name, and that's kind of how it started.
Okay, that's good to
So
hear.
tell us about like what was the inspiration behind the name avec classe? Just give a little inspiration. Is there a story behind it?
How'd you come up with that one?
Because it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I love dressing up, and like when it comes to event planning, I like to make it like, I love decoration. So like I always try to make like a certain theme. Like for example, my first event, it was a throwback party, and I always put a lot of thought when it comes to decoration, and that's kind of like how it came together. When I started, I didn't want it to just be like nightclub events. So I wanted to branch off into doing day parties, like rent out event halls, and like actually have like a full out designed theme. And that's kind of why I wanted to call it Event Class. Yeah.
Event Class. Okay, it makes sense. So can you give us a brief description essentially of your role as an event planner?
Yeah. So I basically try to come up with ideas that I think would be appealing to the audience. So I always try to look for something that would be eye-catching when I have like a flyer, as well as sound good. So for example, my first event was called Blame It on the Alcohol, which was a throwback party. And if you know like the popular song by
T-Pain,
Jamie Foxx, like it just screams like
blame it on the
good
alcohol.
vibes, exactly. So I wanted it to be like a dress code, and I designed it to the point where like people heard about it. The way I made the poster, it was based off of like early 2000s vibe. Like even like the cartoon that I had, he had the long jersey, the spray painting on the wall and everything.
Okay. So it sounds like it's a meticulous process overall for you to get this all done. Okay, that's good to hear. Do you specialize in any sort of event, or is it just go with the flow type of thing?
Well, I try to plan my events, like even in my phone, I have a bunch of events planned out, like just ideas, even if I decide to go with it or not. Whenever I think of an idea, I just write it down, because I never know if it's going to come into fruition. So I always make sure to write it down, and so far they've been nightclub events. However, I do want to branch out and do different type of parties, like I said.
Okay, so big plans are coming.
Exactly.
I like that.
All right.
And what was the first event you ever organized, and how did it go?
So my first event was Blame It on the Alcohol, which was the early 2000s throwback party. It was a themed event, and because it was my first event, I was really nervous, considering the fact that I had just moved to Ottawa like 6 months prior. I never threw an event ever. My personal Instagram got hacked, so I didn't really have that much followers to like promote it out to. So I kind of just relied on like my sister, who she knew, because she was already living in Ottawa, and like just the small people that I knew, and I just promoted it with like all my heart and just promoted it every day, all day. And when it actually came, it was sold out. Like over 500 people were there. Oh, wow. Okay. It was insane. Like the lineup was still going. People couldn't get it. And like, it just showed me that this is what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to do.
So you got a lot of support for your first event.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. That's good to hear. How do you keep up with trends? With like industry trends? You know, you started your first one with a throwback party. How do you keep up with what's going on?
So typically, so when I think of like trends, so for example, I had a Valentine's Day party. So I kind of base it off of what's hot right now. So if it's Valentine's, I try to make an event that is based off of that theme. However, I try to put my own twist into it. So for Valentine's, exactly. Yeah. So like for Valentine's, I had an event called Lovers and Friends. However, this was a bracelet party, so kind of like a traffic light party. So red was taken, yellow was complicated, green was single, white was not searching, you know? So I just try to add a little like different vibes, some like my own like twist to it whenever I have something going on. And TikTok really helps.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
And what makes an event successful, in your opinion?
It used to be, well, when I first threw my event, I felt like the success was based off of how many people came, right? However, I've gone to the point where I've had events that were sold out and I've had events that were nearly empty. And those events had me like, I don't think this is meant for me. However, those events that were empty, I would see people having fun. And even though I was sad, like, oh, not so many people were here. When I see the faces and how much fun they're having with their friends, I'm like, this is why I do it, you know? So like, at the end of the day, it's all about how people feel because it's all about the experience of how they come, right? I don't do it for like the money. I don't do it for that. So that's why I always try to do above and beyond and give people like the best experience that they can have when they come to my events.
That makes sense.
So it's about the passion for you.
Exactly.
I like that.
Speaking of which, you know, you kind of mentioned that, you know, there have been some events that haven't been as full overall. Can you give us can you give us an idea of how it is when, you know, you have an event that didn't go as planned, essentially? Like, what are some of the drawbacks that you can say?
So after my first event with the Blame It on the Alcohol, having that, like, I kind of thought, oh, it's set from here. Every event is gonna be sold out. Like, you know, I put my name on the map. But then the second event, that was the not least successful, but like the event with least people in it. And that kind of like was like a setback and kind of like a shock to me. So when I was in that situation, I was really sad. Like in the moment, I was really sad. Like it was hard for me to dance because I felt like, you know, what happened? Like, was it just a fluke? Was it just luck when I, you know, had that event? Exactly. But then like people were still having fun and people were still saying like, this is a great event. So then I was like, you know, even though it's not what I expected, I now know that I have to go back to the drawing board, see what went right with my first event and how I can apply it for my third event. So that's kind of how it went.
Okay.
So on that note, like based on you said, like your first event was successful, but the second one wasn't, right? So you faced a challenge, right? In that sense. So what do you think, in terms of making events, what are the challenges that you have to overcome? Like, because you just said sometimes you think it could be successful. Is it competing with another event that's going on? Do you try to like sway away from that, or you like may the best event win and we'll see what happens?
Well, events typically happen on Fridays or Saturdays, right? And we have nightclubs in Ottawa, so there's always going to be something going on the same day as you. However, I just try to, like, I never try to compete with anybody else because I know that when I compete with other people, it kind of like now is more of like who's going to be more successful, and it kind of draws away from my passion. So I try to like just stay focused on what I'm doing and like I try not to get too much with competition because have been events like, for example, my second event, I believe that was a time where a really popular artist was going to Toronto, and he wasn't going to Montreal or Ottawa, so like a lot of people were going down there. At least my friends were going down there, so it was. I felt kind of like sad, like my friends aren't gonna be here.
There's the support.
Exactly. But it happens. You win some, you lose some. It is what it is.
No, I get it.
Have you ever dealt with a difficult client in general?
I haven't dealt with clients yet because I haven't thrown like personalized events. I've dealt with like people that were harder to work with or like that I wasn't used to, but I just try to remember the end goal, and like whenever I'm dealing with like hard people, I just try to remember the goal. Like it's not about them. Like one thing I always keep in mind is that I never let one person dictate my success. So like if I want to do something and there's somebody that's saying like, this won't work out. If it doesn't work with them, I try to find somebody else that's going to help me, so that's something that I always try to.
So you keep it moving.
Exactly.
That's it. Because at the end of the day, like a party has to go on, right? People are here to have a good time. So you're going to have bumps and bruises, but hey, keep it moving. That's good.
So, given the situation, what would you do? Let's say if you had an up-and-coming artist that was supposed to be coming and they canceled the show on you at the last moment.
What would I do?
That's a good one.
Yes, it was. I think based off of experience, my sister and I, we went to a concert and like we were supposed to see like a really, really big artist and he canceled last minute. And we were like devastated. But now I was kind of like in my head, I was like, ooh, like what are the event planners going to do? Like this is tough. But then they kind of switched it around. Like, yes, it's easy to stall the crowd and like, like people are like yelling, what's happening? However, they kind of turned it into a party. So one thing that I would do is like, I know what it's like to be a part of the audience and have people like thinking like, like tell us what's going on with the artist, So I try to be direct and like tell them like, the artist isn't coming. I'm sorry. This isn't what we had planned. However, I try to make the best out of the situation, and whether that's offering an incentive or, turning it into a party, like, or, free entry for the next event. I just try to make the best of the situation.
That's good. You have to have alternatives, right? Because
essentially
people are just going to walk out and get emotional. So how do you deal with the turmoil, right?
Exactly. Because they don't really, when that happens, they don't really look at the artist. They mostly look at the brand through the event. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. No.
Okay. So
go ahead. CeCe.
Actually, my bad.
No, go ahead.
All right.
Well, you know what I mean? Let's go.
Speaking of which, all right, which channels do you use to promote your platform the most?
I mostly use Instagram. I'm trying to get the hang of TikTok. TikTok is really hard for me to try to get the hang of, honestly, but I know that TikTok is definitely an up-and-coming app, so especially when you want to expose something. But right now, the main thing that I use is Instagram. I've actually started to use Facebook as well. I haven't really used Facebook before, except for when it like automatically posts from Instagram to Facebook. But I think like Facebook is definitely Facebook and TikTok is something that I really want to branch out to.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like you said, you're trying to figure out the social. So in terms of like when you make a budget, what's the game plan for these events? Because you're using also like these social platforms, but you also have to have a plan, for fruition. So tell us a bit about that.
Honestly, my first year, like I'm about to hit my first year, but
congratulations!
Thank you.
That's a big milestone. Some people they give up after a few.
Round of applause. All right.
So, my events coming up to my first year, honestly, I noticed that I don't have a budget a lot of time because, like I said, like my passion is what, drives me. So, it's all about the decor for me. So, whenever I buy like a bunch of decors and all that stuff, I don't really think of the price. And then, I've talked to... just forget it.
Go ahead. That's all
good. Like it's just not necessarily it wasn't about the budget for me at first. However, I did notice that I was spending a lot. So I feel like now it's more so quality over quantity, you know, moving into the future. So like, I don't need to spend a bunch of decor. I just need to make sure that my events are what I want it to be without having to break the bank and still, you know.
An event of substance.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And also so. And it still has to represent avec class.
Exactly.
That's the main goal.
Avec class, right?
Avec class, you know.
It makes sense. It makes sense. So we kind of already spoke about this. How do you kind of handle last minute unexpected setbacks overall? Like, I know we talked about having an artist cancel on you. Are there any other setbacks that you see in your position that can have an effect on your event?
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of setbacks when it came to planning an event. However, I always try to keep the end goal in mind. So like, if I do deal with a setback, it's mostly not about like what's going to stress me, but like how is it going to affect the audience. You know, so like I always keep them in mind. So if it's a setback that's going to affect me, I'll take it. But if it's something that's going to affect the audience, I try to like get on it as soon as possible. You know, I don't try to let people see my stress. So that's something that I always try to
never see you sweat.
Never see you sweat. Big facts.
Oh, okay. But like, based on his question though, it's like you said, the setbacks, like for example, like for the alcohol control, you make sure you have the good staff. There's no ruckus and stuff like that. So that's good. Right? Now I'm gonna ask you is like, what's the best way and you found for choosing an event? Like, is it preferably the weather time? Is it better in the winter? Is it better in the summer? Where do you see your most turnout in terms of event?
Well, so far I've only been throwing night events. However, because the weather is coming out, like it's hotter weather, I am definitely trying to branch out to day parties and, patio parties. So as of right now, I'm not, like, I don't base it off of the weather, but I know that, like, the season, like, is basically what I'm trying to make it, like, based off of. Like, if it's in the winter, the night events. If it's summer, day events.
I get that.
So essentially, there's a lot of factors that are in play when choosing an event. To kind of double down on that, what's your creative process when choosing an event, when choosing a location overall?
My creative process is, well, when I think of throwing an event, I kind of think of what's an event that I would want to go to, So, like, and not even just that I would want to go to. Like, it's easy for me to have an event and just, put a name on it and then just share the flyer. But it's like, what do I want that's going to stand out from any other event? So that's why I always try to add something unique into what I do. So that's something that I always try to consider whenever I'm planning an event or making notes. So that's why it's not off of the whim. Like, I try to, whenever I think of something, I write it down. I put it in my phone so that even, like, if I decide not to do it, but, like, it's an event that I write down, I can still come back and write a bunch of, like, additional notes, and then that kind of makes the event come alive,
Yeah, it fleshes it out, essentially. So I kind of wanted to add to it. So, you mentioned that you're taking notes as you're reviewing, your events and whatnot, and you're planning. Do you ever run your notes or run your ideas back to your sister? Because you have a team, right? Essentially,
I don't have a team.
No?
However, I do have a support system.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's a team.
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
That's a team.
Yeah,
so let's go for it.
But so I always go to, like, whenever I'm having, like, events, difficulties, I definitely do run it by my sister. Yeah. She is the person that, like, whenever I can, I'm the most indecisive person. So she always tries to tell me to just, like, even if she decides an answer, she's like, at the end of the day, it's me that's deciding, but you have to decide for yourself. For sure. So I do take her opinions, like, I take it, like, not lightly, but she is the key of who I reach out to whenever I'm having to deal with something or, like, any stress, I bring it up to her first.
Yeah. And, with that... Sorry, with that being said, overall, like, else from your sister, are there anybody else, like your friends, that are giving support and overall like it could just be positive feedback.
I have like, my family. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, my family, like I have my cousins, my friends, like they are people that have been helping me. Like their opinions do mean a lot, because I know like whenever I'm dealing with like stress and like I tend to bottle it in. However, when I finally do release it, it's kind of like word vomit. So whenever I do deal with it, like I love to turn to them, and they'll tell me how it is. They'll tell me this event sucks. This,
they keep it real.
They keep it real, exactly. Because
they keep it real.
If they, like I said, like I used to go to events with them, so it's like if they wouldn't go to an event, then I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do it.
So on that, like, is there any event that you wouldn't do, or like you wouldn't touch, or like, because like you said, your support system, they tell you if they don't like it or not. But is there any event that you're like, you know what? I know I respect y'all, but I'm still gonna go with it anyways, because there's always a button of opinion, You can have someone tell you it's not good, but you just see the vision that they don't see. So does that ever happen in the creative process? Or?
If I know, like, sometimes it's like I ask for an opinion, but I already know the answer. So like sometimes I'll ask them for this, and like, oh, should I do this? And they'll say, no, it's not a good idea. Then I'll be like, well, I like it, I'll still do it. But so that's something I do sometimes. But if I know that like in my heart that it's gonna be a good event and I'm gonna have fun planning it, I'll go with it.
Okay.
And on that, what is the most, since you've done this for a year now, right? What is your most favorable event outside of Blame It on the Alcohol? Is there something else, or is it just that one that stands out for you because it was your first event?
My bubble party.
Bubble party.
Yeah. Speak on it.
Yes, so I had a neon. Okay, it's not like that.
I don't know what y'all was thinking.
Speak on it.
Bubble party.
You got everyone interested.
Bubble tea, man. That's what I was thinking about.
Not trust. Like that, guys. No, it's like the total opposite of whatever you're thinking. It was a neon bubble party, so like it was actual bubble machines. So we had it in the club, and I had it neon. So like there was like neon wristbands, and I just had a bubble machine like everywhere. So bubbles were going around, and like no one has ever done it here in Ottawa, so it was definitely a staple. So whenever people came, I had other event planners and promoters coming out, and they were like, this was a really unique idea. And just the idea, like how it came together and like how I planned it out, it was stressful. And even during the event, it was kind of like possibly could have gotten messy because bubbles, like soap on the floor. But it ended up working out perfectly fine. Nobody slipped. Nobody got injured.
That could have been bad.
Definitely.
That could have been bad. But hey, it turned out well. So it's a good thing. So that was one of the events that you've done. Talk to us about an event that would essentially be your dream event.
My dream event.
You have the budget that you want. You have the right team. Everything's going well. What would it be?
I want to throw my own festival.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so
Speak it to existence. Let's go.
Okay. So I definitely want to throw my own festival with artists. I don't I'm kind of caught between two types of festival, but if I have the budget, I do both, right? So like I definitely wanted to throw like a huge like throwback R&B festival, but at the same time, just like a festival named after myself. I love naming things after myself. So I would love to throw a festival, like whatever artist that I want, a big area, and just that's my dream. That's your dream. Definitely something I would want to do.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And which artist would you bring to that festival? Because you're talking about festivals, so what would be like your Mount Rushmore? So that's like your top 4 to bring that to your list. It could be any current. You can pick anyone. It can be any local, whatever you feel.
Yes, Doja Cat.
Okay, Doja Cat. Okay.
Nicki Minaj.
Nicki. Okay. Drake, Aman's favorite. Facts. Let's get it.
Alright, my bad.
And
slow, man.
WizKid.
WizKid.
All right.
Afrobeats.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a good mix out there, you know? No, that's good.
That's actually a solid show.
I'm a little baby. Just
Little
adding right
baby.
there.
Okay.
Baby.
All right.
Okay,
Let's go.
that's good.
Continue, my man.
Yeah, for sure, I got you. I was just reading the question, my bad. So how do you feel the events happening in Ottawa compared to other cities? It's like Montreal, Toronto.
Well, living in Toronto, of course, there's a big shock change in the
Cultural
event
change.
life. Exactly. However, like for example, in Toronto, I know whenever I go out in Ottawa, like I would go to the club at like 1:30, and then people like, there's only like half an hour left, and I'm like, whoa, in Toronto, this is when it starts,
Yeah.
But like, the events in Toronto are definitely different compared to Ottawa, but that's why I'm here, right? So I definitely wanted to add that, like, I wanted to have more anticipated events in Ottawa, because it's like, I don't feel like you should have to drive 4 hours if you want to party. When you can do it here. I want people to drive 4 hours to my event.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
And is there any events as as an event planner you would refuse to do? Or have you been suggested things in the past you're just like, nah, it's not for me? And tell us why, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Specific events, I can't think of at the top of my head. However, events that don't align with me as a person, like if it's something that I wouldn't, like go to even just generally, that's an event that I would not consider doing, so sense. Like as long as it aligns with me, as long as I know that I'd feel comfortable doing it, then that's an event that I'm willing to throw, or an event that I'm willing to be a part of.
And it doesn't matter even if that person gives you a lot of money, at the end of the day it has to fit within your principles, or you make exceptions.
All money ain't good money, right?
That's true.
Don't say a number now. But
might have to revisit.
Like at the end of the day, even if that money was there and I did throw the event, I know that it wouldn't feel comfortable, and it is something that I would have in my portfolio, and like I wouldn't want to talk about it. So I don't know if that's something I would consider doing.
What if it's booming? What if it's booming?
What if it's booming?
Let's say it's something that doesn't relate to you, but you end up doing it, and it ends up booming.
So if it's something that I wouldn't, like, I'm always interested in hearing ideas. And if it's something that I wouldn't normally think of, I would consider doing it. However, if it's something that I'm not comfortable with, I wouldn't do it. So if it's new and like different to me, I would do it. But if it's something that I'm not comfortable with doing, then I wouldn't do it.
That's fair.
All right, well, that makes sense. What brings out the most excitement in event planning?
Seeing people excited to go to the event. Even after the event, when I hear people talking about it, and even saying things like, "Oh, I really wish I came to your event. It looked so nice," things like that, or like, "I'm gonna be at the next event." That is something that brings joy to my heart, and just them telling me that they had a great time at my event, because that's why I do it, right? For everybody to enjoy the experience. Yeah.
I have one more question.
Go ahead. Continue. No apologies out here on Straight Facts, man. Collaborate, my man.
Of course. Just it came to mind, so I want to make sure I ask. Else from event planning, what else would you be doing? Like if you weren't planning events right now?
So I am actually working on a fashion brand.
Okay.
I plan on launching it this summer. Because of my event that I'm planning now, it is something that I had to kind of put it on pause at the moment. And I don't have any regrets putting it on pause, because during this event, it did help put my name on the map, and it did help market who I am more. So that is definitely...
it's a bonus.
Something that I like. But fashion, I love fashion. One thing I like to do is I like getting into business with things that I can promote myself. So like, for example, event planning, I like to party, or fashion, I like to dress up. So it's easier to market when it's a part of your lifestyle.
It aligns with your goals.
Yeah, so I definitely do plan on launching a fashion brand. It's going to be called Women Must Have. So it's going to be spelled WMNMST HVE. So it's called Women Must Have Fashion. So like something that like a motto that we have is, you know, just being able to have all the women must have fashion pieces for any event or any occasion, you know? So I did want to make something that was like fun with the words, but also like unique, you know? Yeah.
No, that's good.
So stay tuned for that because it's going to have the hottest pieces and it's going to be the go-to spot for women to shop in Ottawa.
Okay. So before we wrap this up, I was just going to say, do you want to give him your socials?
Yes, okay.
So we can see where you...
So my personal Instagram is IamCeCe Jolie. So that is IamCeeJoliee. And then my Instagram for my event company, event class, it is AVECCLASSE.ENT.
Okay.
And you heard it here. What? On what show? Straight Facts.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.